Everyone, myself Vaibhav. In today's session of Visual JForex, we are going to consider a very interesting indicator, and it is also one of the favorite indicators of many traders. This is a part of the other series of indicators which we have started yesterday. So this is the second of this series. Yesterday we did the ATR. Now I will explain to you how we can utilize this indicators block on the Visual JForex platform, which is developed by the Dukascopy Bank SA to design and develop the algorithmic setup. So here, if you go for the other section of this indicator blocks here, the Bollinger Bands is listed second from the top. So we will see how we can initialize and then the possible combinations for these input parameters. The start point can be any of the three. For today's session, we are going to work with the on candle as our start point. Now coming to the input parameters. Input parameters go on to define the workings of the Bollinger Band. So this is the essential part where you have to choose these input parameters carefully and to see what is the combination, what are the maximum, you can say, the profit generating possibilities which can be figured out using the Bollinger Bands combination to find out such possibilities, or you can say even opportunities. We have to observe the prior data, prior charting, and see if there are statistically significant events which will provide us the clue regarding the direction of the market trend, and to that extent we can rely on the Bollinger Band. This is the USD JPY chart on the hourly time frame. This each candlestick is of 1 hourly time frame. Now this is the default setup, the Bollinger Bands. Here the combination is 20 EMA and the standard deviation on both the sides is 2 standard deviation. Now these are the parameters which we can define as per our convenience. We have these options given to us where we can choose any particular applied price, the time period for the calculation of the particular moving average. Even the moving average can be chosen as per our liking. So we have here all the options listed which are supported on the platform. We have various types of moving averages. We have already seen the each moving average type in detail in the prior session. So depending on your requirement and the propensity, you can use particular combination. Now let me explain to you briefly how we can use these indicators to figure out if it's the opportune time to get involved for any trading opportunity. As per its developers, you can say the trading idea, this Bollinger Band was going to be used to see the trend and also the strength of the trend. So here, whenever the momentum is strong, you see that there will be a bulge in the Bollinger Bands, and this gap between the two bands, the lower band and the upper band, will be quite wide. When the underlying instrument is pretty range bound, there is not much of a movement. In such times, the squeeze happens, and the Bollinger Band difference between the upper band and the lower band is pretty narrow, and these are considered the time of consolidation, which kind of gives you an idea that maybe in near future one the breakout on the either side. It doesn't really give the idea of the direction of the breakout, but it generally says that you can expect a breakout on the either side, and you should be prepared for that. And as is the use of EMA or any other moving average, we use to find out the direction of the trend, and any price action, price movement below that is considered bearish, and any price action above that is considered bullish. So if the last couple of hours of consolidation has now given way to a price move on the upper side, and also the moving average is tilting on the upside, then you can say the underlying trajectory is on the upper side. And looking at the deviation, if the deviation is strong and the price action is inching towards the upper band, then you can say the magnitude of the movement is also good, and you can say the momentum is strong and this is the time to get involved for any fresh trading opportunity. And vice versa for the sell trade, if the momentum is bearish and strong, you can go for the fresh trading opportunities for short sell trade. And as long as the price action is concentrated below this moving average and in between this lower band and the middle band, you can continue to look for the bearish trading opportunities. You can use these indicators to figure out the with the trend possibilities. Also, one other way to look at it is the overbought or oversold scenario. If the price action has been fairly strong and now it has crossed above the upper band and it is sustaining there, you can say that the underlying instrument has entered into an overbought scenario. Or if the price action is pretty bearish and below the even lower band, and in such scenarios you can think about these prevailing conditions to be oversold, and change in trend or at least the consolidation can be around the corner. So that is also one way to look at this. And then, as I said, we have to see what is the combination which is likely to bring in maximum profit, and then go accordingly for configuring these indicator block. We have all the options given to us. We have editing options, and then to looking at the charting and observing the chart and finding out the statistically significant formations, we can go for any particular combination, and we have the freedom to do so. So here we will start configuring all these parameters one by one. The instrument of your choice can be anything, Euro USD or any other instrument of your liking. You have all the options given here. And for today's session, we will keep the Euro USD as it is, so we will not make any changes. And on the chart also, we will change the default instrument to Euro USD. So far we have considered the USD JPY. Now this is the Euro USD chart on the hourly time frame, and the Bollinger Band is defined at 20, standard deviation is 2, and the moving average type is EMA, exponential moving average. Coming to the time period of the candlestick, it basically depends on your need for the trades. Actually, if you are looking for multiple trades in a single day for short moves, then in such scenarios lower time frame candlesticks are of more appropriate choice. And if you are looking for the swing trades with big moves, then I think the longer time horizon, the longer period candlesticks are more appropriate. So depending on the trading requirement, you can choose to work with any of the combination. For today's setup, we will keep the 4 hourly as our time period for candlestick. Shift is the look back period. Here the shift can be anything, 0 to the, say for example, we can go back in time to the extent we want the data to be retrieved. And if suppose if you want to look back at the 10 candlesticks period back and take the data from that point in time, you can do that. All you have to do is look back period should be taken as 10, and you will have the data retrieved to you for using to generate the trade signals or to set further conditions. Time period, this time period is the candlesticks, number of candlesticks which will be used to calculate the Bollinger Band's output, and default value is 20, but you can configure the Bollinger Band and you can always change this value. So for example, we will make this time period to 30. So you will see that as we tinker with the time period for calculation of the Bollinger Band, you will observe the noticed noticeable change in the plotting of these Bollinger Bands. So this is the Euro USD chart now on the 4 hourly, and these Bollinger Bands are being drawn for 30 time period with the standard deviation being at 2 and the moving average type is EMA, and you can see the change compared to what we were looking at when we had the Bollinger Bands being calculated for 20 candlesticks. Now coming to the standard deviation, this is the statistical measure of the volatility, and we take this standard deviation value, which is derived from variance between the median price and then the extremes. And here we will not really go into the calculation of the standard deviation. For that, we will rely on the system. For us, it will be done by this setup, and all we have to do is see if the two standard deviation is fine, or we need to increase or decrease the standard deviation amount. We can increase it, we can decrease it. For example, we can choose to use 3 standard deviation, and then the chart will look something like this. So here now this is the standard deviation at 3 for calculation of the Bollinger Bands. You can bring it down to say 1. So these are notional values, and you have to actually decide what is the appropriate standard deviation, which will help you figure out the optimum conditions for trading. So this is how it works. So you have to decide the appropriate configuration, as I said, and then you will be in a good position to go for the fresh trading opportunities. Once you put those conditions in the if blocks and define the both the statements and use this output value to do the comparison or to set the final condition. Now coming to the moving average type, how the moving average is being calculated makes a lot of difference between various these Bollinger Band configurations, and then you have to be careful because the moving average type is actually going to ultimately impact this output value for the Bollinger Bands. And here I will give you a demonstration of how this change in moving average type goes on to affect the plotting of the Bollinger Bands. So here we are using WMA. If we use T3, it will look something like this. If we use HMA, the Bollinger Band plotting will something like this. And if we use Trima is this. So we have all the options given to us, and we have to decide what is the appropriate candlesticks pattern, moving average type, and then accordingly go for that particular combination. Here we have now chosen to work with the 30 candlesticks with standard deviation being at 2 for both upper as well as lower band, and the moving average type is SMMA, and that's how we are getting this plotting for the Bollinger Band. So here if you want to go for the SMMA, all you have to do is choose that particular option from the drag down list, So depending on these input parameters, we get these final outputs, the upper band, the middle band, and then the lower band. And as I have said earlier, we can decide whether to go for the fresh trade at that point in time or simply to wait it out. So we can use this setup to design and develop the algorithmic setup, which will be trading on our behalf day in, day out, making our life easier and also profitable if you find out the combination to bring in the money from the market. And last but not the least, we always have to be careful on which side we are calculating this Bollinger Band. There will be minor difference between the ask and the bid because of the spread. And as I have said, the calculation of MA gets greatly influenced by the applied price. So you have to be pretty thorough in looking at various combinations and what kind of impact is being generated when we take different applied prices. If we simply, for example, change the closing price to say high price or low price, we will see the different plotting, and the difference between these moving averages is going to cast an impact on how this Bollinger Band is going to be calculated. Median price will be like this, and if you want open price, so close price is mostly used, but as I said, it's always up to you, and you have to decide what works best for you and for your trading setup, the system which you will be designing using these Bollinger Bands, and then working on it, testing on it for a good amount of time to see that it is genuinely profitable over a course of time and not just in test data. So that's it from my side for today's session. If any of you have any query or any idea to share, you can write it in the comment section and I would be more than happy to take the discussion forward. Before I sign off, I would also like to remind that you should do extensive testing and then only you might feel confident enough that a particular combination is good enough to be put on the live account. So I think you should do extensive testing and then only think about running these algorithmic setups on your live account. Thank you all for joining in. Have a fabulous day. Goodbye.